Hey, it's Rod Yates. Welcome to Mastering Events, an Audience Republic podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to some of the world's most accomplished event professionals to discover how they got where they are today, the lessons they've learned throughout that journey, and their insights around event marketing and maximizing ticket sales. My guest today is Corey Topp, founder and director of Sellout Digital, a digital marketing agency specializing in events. Corey is well versed in the art of selling out events. Exhibit A is his own festival, Reminisce, which he grew from a backyard party into an annual 10,000 capacity event in Melbourne. And then there's another of his properties, Tailgate, a 1,500 capacity Superbowl party he launched and sold out in just 16 days earlier this year. With Sellout Digital, Corey has helped many other events achieve similar results using a system he developed called the Sellout Marketing System. We talk about the different elements of that system in this interview, from crafting your event campaign messaging like a TV series through to maximizing your ROI on meta ad campaigns. Corey also has experience working in digital across the banking and gambling industries and brings all of that experience into this conversation. A week before this chat, I attended one of Corey's webinars, which is where we start the conversation. You started that webinar by saying most event promoters don't truly understand digital and most digital marketers don't truly understand events. Where's the disconnect on both sides?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes, as my team will attest to. They were kind of like, here he goes again with the quote. But yeah, it's something I kind of have noticed over the past few years, working with a lot of event marketers and working in digital over a long period of time. And I think mainly the disconnect from the event marketers or the event promoter side of things is most event promoters are generally very high energy, bubbly people. You know, they're people. They're probably a bit extroverted, maybe got their head in the clouds a bit. You know, I know that all too well. And so they're not necessarily ready to sort of sit down and dive into the dirt of the digital marketing. You know, digital marketing or any marketing is part art, part science. And quite often the event marketers are more on the art side. They're not so much on the science side. And you do need to know a bit of the science side for digital. So for those guys, that's where the disconnect is. And then I think from the digital marketer side of things, it's really just a case of event campaigns being so different to other campaigns from other industries. You know, I've worked across a lot of different verticals, B2B, banking, gambling. I've done a bit of e-com. I'm no good at it. I'm happy to say that. And I've just noticed that events are a lot different. They're a real different beast. So quite often an agency might get thrown an event campaign by no fault of their own. They haven't run events before, and so they don't know what they don't know. So that's where I've kind of noticed the disconnect.
So what would you say is some of the top differences in event campaigns? What makes event campaigns unique compared to some of the other campaigns which you've been involved with?
Yeah, I think it is the art versus science mix.
Right.
Event campaigns are a lot more art and less science. You still need to be testing and obviously trying things and measuring and tracking and all of that sort of stuff. And that's, as I was saying in the workshop, where a lot of event promoters do fall down. But most of the time it's more on the art side, because if you've got hundreds or dozens or hundreds of different ads all split up, testing hundreds of different variations within your campaign, you're really kind of spreading the engagement and diluting the hype, so to speak, on everything. So that's not to say, like I said, that you shouldn't test, but you've got to be conscious of knowing that has to really have a visual representation of getting that social proof and saying, hey, lots of people are interested in this because there's lots of comments, there's lots of likes, there's lots of engagement, etc.
So how did you learn all that? Because I thought it was interesting that you were saying that you didn't study any of this. When you started working in events, you didn't know anything about digital marketing. When did that begin to change? And were there any kind of key aha moments where things just started to click to you about how digital marketing for events works?
Yeah, definitely. And as I said in the workshop the other day, I was very lucky to have my best mate, Mark Middo, who basically showed me the ropes for everything. He was a bit of a digital guru and I was a bit of the cowboy, coming in, not knowing too much, and a bit of the people person. So for me, it was really sort of understanding that, hey, why are we seemingly doing things different to these other people? For me, it wasn't anything that was too groundbreaking. It was just, And this kind of goes into the sort of model of the sellout marketing system I teach. But it was kind of just having your shit together, basically, I like to call it having your house in order. And it was really basic stuff, like having general digital marketing hygiene all set up. And I'm noticing that so many event promoters didn't have that. So we'd be sitting there running our campaigns, again, through the lead of Mark, having it all set up, nicely tracked with our conversions. We were measuring, tracking, we were doing surveys, finding out what our audience wanted. And it came pretty easy to us because of Mark at the start. But I noticed that a lot of other marketers weren't just doing the basics right. And that's what it really all does come down to.
And those basics are some of the things you just mentioned: polling people, asking people what they want, getting your tracking right, looking at your conversions. They're the kind of basics that you're talking about there.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it does seem obvious and it does seem quite simple. But like I said, the devil is in the detail. And then going into the actual campaigns that you're running, the words that you're using, what your strategy actually looks like. Again, going back to the way that the events usually work. We're all really busy people. We're all wearing a ton of hats. We've got a million different things on. We're worrying about booking talent. We're worrying about budgets. We're worrying about dealing with sponsors and partners and production, event logistics. You know it well. The list goes on, right? And so quite often it almost becomes like a bit of a production line. Get the artwork done, get the video done. Oh yeah, get the write-up done. That's the last thing that they think about because it's the last thing they have to do before it actually goes out for an ounce. It's just, oh yeah, cool. Get your tickets. This is going to be awesome. We booked this act. Buy now or sign up for pre-sale. And not too much sort of thought goes into it. What I've really noticed is the power of a really good event write-up is just incredible. It's just incredible. Words matter, and people do read, even though people don't have a huge attention span these days. If you get people's attention and you use hooks and you understand human psychology, you can get people to read. And once they're engaged and they're actually reading your event write-up and you're painting the picture in their head, you're letting them tell the story to themselves, that's where it can become really powerful. And as I said, it becomes a little bit of an afterthought for the most part. This is generally speaking, not everyone, but generally speaking, I've noticed that it does become a bit of an afterthought for promoters.
Let's talk about that event write-up, because that seems really key to what you're talking about there. And you mentioned, getting the hooks right, understanding human psychology. Sounds very easy to do, but there's an art to that. Can you give me an example of perhaps an event write-up that you've done where you've used those hooks? You've kind of used your understanding of human psychology to really try and get people to read the whole blurb and obviously become engaged and want to know more and ultimately buy tickets.
Yeah, I think probably the Tailgate example is a good one. Tailgate was our Superbowl event that we did at the start of this year in February. It's a dream of mine that I've always had. I'm a massive NFL fan, and I've always gone to the Superbowl events around Melbourne every year and started to get a little bit underwhelmed. I just thought the sport's getting so popular. It's getting massive in Australia. It's really becoming global. They're doing games in London and Germany and Mexico, and they're talking about doing one in Australia, yet every year we just kind of roll out the same things, and you just go to the pub and everyone's there and you get served the same sort of food, and it's a pretty standard offering. And of doing a lot of the big festivals and everything that I'd been doing, I thought, why can't we combine this and really Americanize this whole thing and make it huge? And so we kind of started, and it was a really good case study because I recorded and documented this entire process because of what I'd noticed. And I thought, hey, people might need this, and it's good to do something from the very start, because with Reminisce, my other brand, that's 10 years old. So it was good to start something fresh. So anyway, we started it, and we started it with a really basic expression of interest. I just did it from my personal page. Would you be interested in a big festival style Super Bowl party? If yes, what would you like to see? What wouldn't you like to see? What food do you like? What drinks would you like, etc.? And just basically did that. And from there, we got so much interest, which validated our idea. So we knew it was a goer. And B, we just got so much information of exactly how we should set everything up. So then from there, we grabbed all of that information that people wanted, and we planned the event around that, but we also used that in our write-up. We put things in there like it's going to be big, loud, and American. And that was really the sort of main theme of what people sort of said, which was what I'd already originally thought. Sometimes it's just a pub. We want it to be really American, big, loud, drinking the American beers, American food. That sort of side of things we took into the write-up. And then we also added in a lot of psychology principles as well, like authority, social proof, these sorts of principles of marketing, where we've done events ourselves before, Reminisce, which a lot of people know. My other business partner, Gaz, is owner of Pawn & Co, and he also built up Melbourne Street Eats, which was a big food truck carnival festival. They had 10 different sites. So we use those in our write-up too, from the people that bought you Reminisce, that bought you Melbourne Street Eats, etc. Because that gives the credibility and authority to say, okay, well, these guys have obviously ran some pretty successful events before. It's going to be a vibe. So we're very, very focused and concentrated and strategic around these little points that we worked into the write-up. And then we kind of started selling the dream, so to speak, but then letting the user actually paint the picture in their head, because that's a lot more powerful than you just saying, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. If you sort of start letting them imagine it in their own mind, that's when it becomes really powerful. So those are sort of the keys to an event write-up, what I've discovered over the years.
Right. So you're keeping it focused enough that it appeals to what people have told you what they want, but vague enough where they're having to actually, as you said, paint that picture in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to kind of take people along the journey. You want to hold some cards a bit close to your chest and sort of set it up like a bit of a TV series where you leave people hanging each episode, giving them some surprises along the way and getting them thinking, oh, I wonder who the special guest's going to be, or I wonder what this production thing is that they're talking about that has never been done before in Australia, or whatever it is. So you want to be really strategic with that.
And so what was the end result of this marketing for Tailgate?
We sold it out in 16 days, which I knew it was going to do well, but I didn't know it was going to do that well. It was 1,500 capacity, and we sold 800 tickets in the first 20 minutes. And that's when we knew, wow, this is definitely a goer.
Yeah.
Which was really, really exciting. But yeah, it was all down to validating the market, hearing what people wanted, and then just giving it to them. And this is a really big one for me. And again, it's something I harp on about all the time. We were able to be genuine in our use of scarcity in our marketing. And that is one of the most important things, because a lot of the time people just roll out the same old messages. It's almost like it's the one wood of the of the event promoter. It's like, oh, I'll get my driver out and use my my one wood, which is not many tickets remaining. And people can just smell bullshit. They really can. And quite often people just see right through it. So if you set yourself up in the right way and you do your job as the event promoter, you can actually call out the scarcity because there aren't many tickets remaining. So once you do that, man, that's a good place to be as an event promoter. We've all been there. We know the event's going to sell out. We can comfortably go out and say, guys, if you don't get tickets, you're going to miss out. This event is going to sell out. And the level of certainty that you can have when you say those things permeates through all of your marketing, and people can just tell it's real.
I guess that ties into what you were saying earlier about, words are important. And I'm really interested in words, obviously, given my profession. That idea of people also become blind to words, to hype phrases. People, you can get lost in hyperbole, must see, spectacular, going fast, as you just mentioned, tickets selling fast. How do you avoid words just descending into hyperbole? Like, how do you avoid people becoming blind to hype terms like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good point that you make, because people can sort of, again, smell the marketing jargon that people sometimes roll out, and we've all kind of seen it. I think it comes down to a few points. The first one is to know your market. That's really, really important. You've got to know who you're speaking to. Again, using the Tailgate example, we weren't speaking to Americans who can tend to be more open to that hyperbole and that marketing jargon and that hype, because that's just in their culture. Whereas Australians, where we do unfortunately have a lot of that tall poppy syndrome. So we can be quite a cynical bunch sometimes. And you've got to be wary of that. But with Tailgate, we knew we could be a little bit American with it. We could sort of pump up that hype, because it was all that big, shiny, bright lights, cheerleaders, fireworks, American sort of stuff. So we could sort of, lean into that a little bit. Yeah. But then maybe another brand, my other brand, Reminisce, maybe we wouldn't go that deep into that stuff because, and I wouldn't say that by any stretch that as a real brand, Reminisce is quote unquote cool. It's more of a fun brand because it's all about the music. There are much cooler brands, especially around Melbourne, around the techno scene. It's a bit underground. So those guys, if they went out and used some of the messaging that we use for Reminisce or that we used for Tailgate, that would turn their audience away big time. They would be like, what? This is no, that's not, that's not what we do in techno land, So it's really about, knowing your audience and then just testing things. That's the most important part is documenting what you're doing. Understand, okay, we're going to go for this time. We're going to do a bit of more of a longer write-up. We're going to paint the picture, paint the scene, and that might not go that well. You might not get a great response. And then next time you might try something shorter and sharper and people may respond to it. So it's really just about understanding your market and then just testing and see what they respond to.
You mentioned Reminisce, which is another great case study I'd like to chat to you about. It's almost the definition of success. This little kind of almost backyard festival that you started in 2011, from what I understand, and basically just asked a bunch of your friends to vote for their favorite house tracks from the previous decade. And then you got some DJ
It was actually
decks.
a top 20 at the start, and now it's got all the way down to 5, but we can jump into that.
Okay. People voted for their favorite house songs. You put some DJ decks in the backyard, invited all your friends, and did it in a countdown from 50 to 1, I think, or 20 to 1. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it was such a success that 10 years on, you've grown it into an annual 10,000 capacity event in Melbourne. You've expanded into other dance genres, and you're also taking that concept on the road now. You're touring that concept. I'm sure we've definitely discussed some of the specific principles that worked for that as you were marketing that. But just in general, from a really top line perspective, what do you reckon you got right with the marketing for Reminisce?
Feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's probably it's a good sign to say that it is simple and it can doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Our brand was all about the people from the very start. So in essence, they vote for the music that they're hearing on the day. And so they were involved. And as the countdown gets closer and closer to number 1, more and more people have voted for each song. So as each song goes by, more and more people are jumping up and getting excited. Oh, that's my tune. That was my number 1. And so they were really along for the journey the whole way. And I think that was really important to our success. Also, the fact that it was unique. Like, look, we didn't invent countdowns. We didn't invent classics parties. But to do it actually at an event and play it live where it's more of a club scene, now it's a festival scene, but back then it was a club. No one had done that before. So it was really unique. And I think that's what really got it to become very sticky. People were just going absolutely nuts for it. That has now carried all the way through to our events that we do today, even though they're on a much bigger scale. And it's not like they sell out in one day like they used to, but that whole stickiness and fun connotation towards the brand is still there. It's just on a larger scale.
You've got to capture that in your marketing, right? Like how do you do that?
Absolutely. And again, it all comes back to the people. So we have the people of Reminisce, and that's kind of one of our little storylines that we have all the way through our marketing. So you'll notice a lot of the photos and everything that we put up, we're always focusing on the people and the emotions that those people are having. And so we've kind of noticed that, again, just through feedback, and sometimes not even prompted feedback. It's not like some of the stuff that we've got back from people hasn't been us going out and doing a survey and saying, hey, can you let us know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, which we still do. But I remember this one message that I got from a friend of mine, and he wrote to me, I effing love you. I love what you do, but you do more for my marriage than you will ever know.
Right.
And that really hit hard for me because I had never thought about it in that way. And then I started exploring it and diving deeper. And we have got some similar feedback from other people too. And I kind of realized, hey, our market is people generally around my age. So I'm 37, but anywhere from really 25 to 55. So it's a little bit older. A lot of the time they're young parents. So they've just had their world turned upside down by having children. They used to go out, party, footloose, fancy free, not a care in the world. They were obviously very connected and everything like that. And, life gets on and you have kids and that sort of changes. It becomes difficult to have, time together. So people were treating, or people do treat Reminisce as that one day a year where they can get the babysitter, they can go out, listen to the songs that they used to listen to, they can reconnect, probably fire up that spark again. And it just goes so much deeper than just going to a festival and having some drinks and dancing and being hungover the next day.
Right.
And so once I realized that, I was like, wow, that is so powerful. That is absolute marketing gold for us. And then we started working a lot of that into our marketing. So I think the overall point is listen to the things that you may not even actually take in and dive in deeper. And that's what's going to uncover your gold for your brand, because every single brand has its own USPs, its own unique selling propositions. It doesn't matter if, you might just be a techno party or a house party or a corporate event, B2B event, or whatever type of event it is. Everyone can sit there and write down what is different about them that no other event in the whole world has. That's what you got to dial into. And then you got to really go deep into the people and the reasons why people are there. And that's where you'll uncover your gold for your marketing.
You touched briefly earlier on the idea of crafting messages across the campaign, almost like a TV series, I think is one of the terms that you used in your webinar, as almost like a Netflix series. Can you expand on that concept a little bit? What you mean by crafting your messaging like a TV series?
Yeah, I think it's we've all been hooked on Netflix or Stan or whatever, where it's just our favorite show and we just can't get enough. And the writers are smart people. They understand storytelling better than any of us. That's what they do as a profession. So you kind of want to have a look at that and say, okay, well, why are people getting so hooked? And they get you emotionally invested in the characters, which is really important. So you're always, going for so-and-so, or you don't like him, but you like her, or vice versa. And then they have a story arc for most of the characters. Some shows obviously do it better than others. But then the way that they do their episodes is there's always a hook at the end where is so-and-so going to survive? And you kind of want to think of your marketing campaign a little bit like that. And so at the start, you want to think about, what makes you different? What makes you appeal to people at an emotional level? What feelings are they going to feel when they're at your event? Is it escapism? A lot of the time, festivals, people just want to go. They want to escape from the daily grind and listen to some good music and be free. A lot of the time, it's connection. They want to connect with their mates. They want to meet new people. They want to have new experiences. But then maybe at a corporate level, maybe it might be a B2B seminar or conference. Again, networking, meeting new people, but then also learning a lot, getting value. And then you want to go further and say, okay, well, what's the value that you are going to get out of this conference in terms of an actual benefit down the road? So yeah, it might be more success in your business, but what's that going to get you? Some people are more driven by status. Some people are driven by being able to provide for their family. Some people are driven by freedom. It depends what people are driven by, but you want to identify all of these things and then use those as your kind of pillars to then craft your sort of storylines and your messaging throughout your whole campaign, and then keep some to you and seed that through your campaign as you go along, as little kind of surprise and delights.
You've talked about the power of a soft yes in event marketing. What do you mean by a soft yes?
Yeah, so again, going back to the principles of psychology and marketing, it's now called the commitment principle. It used to be called the consistency principle, but it's the same thing. People are more likely to go ahead and do something if they've already said that they're going to do it. So if your friend invites you to their birthday and you say that you're going to go, and then a better offer comes up during the week, you're more likely to say, no, I'm going to go to their birthday because I've already said that I've already committed to it. So it kind of goes back to that principle. So what you want to do is you want to gain interest from people without a financial transaction, because that's, as we know, most of the time the barrier. It's when people actually have to get out their credit card and pay for something, that's the barrier. So you want to enable people to commit softly without actually having to transact, because then they're more likely to go through with it and say, okay, I did show interest in this event. I'm interested, I'm keen, I'm going to look at buying a ticket. So that's good for that side of it, but it's also then good because you then can gain their data through an email address or a phone number or whatnot, which then enables you to market to them. And then it also gives you an idea of how many people are actually interested in whatever it is that you're putting together.
And so that might be as simple as registering for a pre-sale. That's how you get that soft yes?
Yeah, that's your standard sort of way to do it. But if you don't have a pre-sale, because some events maybe they're too small or whatever it might be, where it doesn't really make sense to do a pre-sale, you can just go on sale straight away. But you still want to basically do an expression of interest or a market research survey just to get a warm list going, get a list of buyers who may or may not be interested, but have shown some level of interest in what you're doing. And that is just so powerful because that then enables you to validate your idea. If you're a new brand, it's absolute gold because you might have the best idea ever, but if no one's interested in it, then there's no point doing it. And so you could save yourself a lot of time, energy, heartache, money by just doing that first and going, okay, well, we either A, need to do something completely different, or B, change our offering because we haven't necessarily got the interest that we thought that we would.
Right. Where do you find, as a new brand, where do you find those people? Say this is your first event. How do you find people to do these surveys on?
Yeah, Meta is still, in my opinion, the most powerful way to do that because of the amount of data that they have. They were in the position to be able to harvest all of this data before all the privacy stuff reared its head, and they've still got it there. So that's why you'll find that the attribution side of things, in terms of being able to track people who've bought, conversions, etc., is so much stronger on Meta. So yeah, in that case, most of the time, again, it's a generalization, but most of the time you really should be able to find your market on Meta somewhere, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, etc. And you can just basically put out a survey. Now, the example for Tailgate, we didn't come out and say, this is Tailgate, this is a Super Bowl festival, this is what we're doing, are you interested? I put up a story from my own personal Instagram and just said, I'm thinking about putting together a Super Bowl festival. Would you be interested in something like that? If so, fill out this 5-question survey, and definitely don't do any more than 5. 3 sometimes is fine. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to answer, and you want to keep the questions really simple and valuable to you. Quite often, some people can just go in and just go, oh yeah, I'll ask this, I'll ask that, and da-da-da. But you actually want to drill down to it and think, what do I need to know? What is absolutely critical for me to know? And so an example for our Tailgate one was how we were going to put together the show. It was, do you, A, go to Super Bowl events in Melbourne every single year religiously? B, do you go some years depending? Or C, no, but I would be interested if it was a Super Bowl festival. I think that was one of the questions. And then the next one was, if you have attended Super Bowl events in the past, do you A, stay for the game, then leave straight away? B, stay for the game, have a drink or two and then leave? Or C, are you down for a massive party afterwards? Because that was really important to us because that helped us craft exactly what the day should look like. So you really want to dive in and really think about exactly what you need to know. And then, yeah, you can be quite vague when you first go out. You can do it from a personal profile. Again, people can get turned off if you come out with a big brand. Oh, it's this big event, it's this, it's that. But if you're just kind of gaining interest and do it from a personal brand and be quite vague, that's when I find you do get a lot of responses from that. Because people are like, oh, what's this? Oh, I'm interested to find out more.
Have you marketed an event that didn't get much pre-interest and you had to adapt?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one that comes to mind is Reminisce Carnival. So out of COVID, we had an opportunity to do a Reminisce event at Flemington. We usually do it at the Music Bowl. We could share costs with another event, and financially that was going to work for us. So we thought, okay, and they were calling it like the Carnival. So we played on that and used the brand Reminisce Carnival and did a big circus, trapeze acts and fire breathers and stilt walkers and did a huge sort of carnival vibe, but it wasn't our usual Reminisce event. And when we launched it, it went nuts. We had really good artwork. It absolutely kicked ass. But this was in December 2021. So we were almost the first big festival out of COVID. And the event was a massive success. We had a huge crowd. It was amazing all round. So then the next year rolls around. We're like, we've got another brand. Bang, let's do it. So we came up with a date. We couldn't do December again. We had to do it in September. We rolled it out again. We launched it. We launched the pre-sale and it was flat as a tack. We had to make a decision, and this is the good thing about doing pre-sales and doing pre-launches. Yes, we'd spent money on artwork, a bit of marketing, artist deposits, but we got out of it pretty unscathed. We just decided to call it. We said, we're going to be really battling this whole time. When you do things long enough, you can just feel whether it's going to go or not.
Right.
And the event may have got there. It may have got to a break even, and it probably would have been a good event. But we just thought, do we want to bust our asses for 4 or 5 months trying to get this thing over the line? Or do we just cut our losses now, lose a bit of money, and just move on? And so, yeah, we made that call and we canned it. And I think it was the best decision we could have made.
Can it be almost impossible to turn a ship around when you can just sense that you're not getting that interest?
Yeah, I wouldn't say almost impossible. And it's hard to sort of talk in a general sense because every single situation has so many different variables and everything like that. It all just comes down to a little bit of, how much appetite for risk that you have or how big of balls you've got. You really got to judge what your current situation is and how much you're willing to lose if it all goes tits up. And that's what I kind of teach to the people that I'm training in the Sellout Academy and other people that I've done sessions with over the years, and people who come to me for advice or whatever it is, and this is kind of going off track a little bit, but it's really important. You've got to know your numbers. And recently I've had to come in contact with a few people who I'm so like, well, what's your break even? What are your expenses? What's your budget like? And they didn't actually know. And that's alarm bells. You've got to know your numbers. At the start of your event, you must know what your break even is. If things don't go too well and you don't get anywhere near your break even, how much money are you going to lose? And then on the other side, if you sell out, how much money are you going to make? They're the 3 numbers that you must know. And you're never going to be 100% accurate at the start of your event, because at the start of your campaign, because there's so many variables, things change. But generally, if you're quite detailed with your projections, you're going to get it about 80% right. So you can sort of know within a 20% margin of how much you're going to lose, break even, and make with your 3 key numbers. And then from there, you just use that to inform all of your decision making. And so with Reminisce Carnival, we looked at it and we thought, wow, this break even is pretty high. And because we didn't have the luxury of the shared costs from the last year and everything, the break even's pretty high. We're miles off it based on our pre-sales. Let's just make the call.
Do you have benchmark? This will probably change from event to event, but do you have benchmarks of when you do a pre-sale, you're going to want to see this many signups, this percentage of signups, and on the first day of on sale, you're going to want to reach this target. Do you have those sorts of goals in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to the planning side of things, it's really important to have a tracker set up. Now, for very small events where it's a small budget, small spend, maybe you might not go to this level of detail, but I generally recommend it if you've got time. We have a daily tracker set up with every single day. What's our activity on all platforms? What are we spending? What's our database doing? And then how many tickets do we want to sell, or how many pre-sale signups do we want? And we've got that for every single Reminisce event we've ever done, every single amount of tickets sold on every day. So we can sort of go back and look at what our pre-sale numbers were and really predict exactly what we're going to sell based off that. And that becomes really, really powerful. For a lot of other events that I've noticed, clients I've worked on or things I've been involved in, generally you find that you'll sell probably 50% of, if you get 1,000 pre-sale signups, you'll probably sell 500 tickets in your pre-sale, as a very broad general rule. For really engaged brands, for Reminisce, we actually generally sell more, because on average, people will buy 2.2 tickets per transaction because people buy tickets for their friends. So again, that's just a general rule of thumb. If we get 5,000 signups for Reminisce, 5,000 people are signed up, but only half of those are actually going to buy tickets because their friend will buy it for them, but then they'll transact and they'll buy 2.2 tickets. So for Reminisce, we generally get 120% of signups, we will get sales. And that's because we have scarcity built into our brand, because we've always sold so strongly. And that's a really good position to be in. But if you're a brand that's just building up, maybe you won't be that strong. But as long as you know your numbers, you can just work to whatever numbers that you're doing.
Do you have ways where you try? Obviously, you've got a ticket purchaser, and each ticket's worth 2.2 tickets. So they're obviously buying for 1.2 people, in fact.
Yeah.
Do you have a way of trying to get the data of who that other 1.2 people are? So you're not just getting the ticket buyers data, but you're also getting the data of the other people who are coming along, but you don't initially have any of their email address or anything like that. Are there any ways that you've found effective to try and get the data of everyone who turns up, or as many people as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know about it, but there's this really good platform called Audience Republic to use.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, Audience Republic's been great for us for the pre-sales for that exact reason. Because if you set up a really good prize for people to sign up, you know, Joe Blogs down the road, he might not be someone who ever buys tickets because his friends always do it, but he might want to sign up because he wants to win the grand prize of the meet and greet with the artists and the all-inclusive VIP package and VIP experience. So it's really good to give people a reason to sign up for pre-sale, even though they're not going to be the ones buying the tickets. And it's actually a really interesting case study and a really interesting point. It's something that I've noticed over the years is you can lean too much towards the prize. And what that does is that sort of takes people's focus away from, hey, I'm in this to buy tickets, not just to win a prize. And so some promoters can get really excited with, oh, we've got this awesome prize. Let's just advertise about the prize. Hey, sign up for pre-sale and win. Where the messaging of, hey, you need to sign up for pre-sale because you need to get tickets. Otherwise, you're going to miss out and you're not going to get the cheapest tickets. That gets lost in the noise. So it's really important to have a balance between focusing on the reason why people are signing up so they can buy tickets to your event, but also giving other people who may not be the general purchaser amongst the group of friends a reason to sign up and grab their data. And that way then you can communicate with them and really help get your messaging, you know, out into your audience a lot better.
That's a great insight, that idea of actually not losing sight of the fact that the pre-sale is designed to sell tickets, not get rid of a prize.
Yeah, absolutely. And then other ways as well. With Reminisce, we're lucky. We've got our voting component too. So everyone that comes to the event, we really try to push them to vote. So we obviously get their data too, then when they vote. That being said, most of the time it's the people that do buy the tickets are the ones that vote. We've noticed that we don't have a huge amount of unique voters, so to speak. They've either signed up for pre-sale or they've bought tickets. But still, it adds a little bit for us. We might get an extra 20% of data out of that. So if you're a brand who, obviously not everyone has people who vote for the music, it's quite unique, but maybe you might look at doing some polls or some side competitions with sponsors or whatever it might be. You know, use like an Audience Republic to then go and run your competition, not just a pre-sale. So these other little mini campaigns inside your overall campaign can really help you harvest that data.
You touched briefly on Meta earlier, and I'm curious, sort of, what are some of the key errors, key mistakes that you see event marketers make in their approach to advertising their events on Meta?
Yeah, it's going back to what I was saying at the start, getting your house in order. That's the main thing that I've noticed. When I was working in agency land, on some really big enterprise clients, big four banks, etc., they used to call it digital hygiene. So it's basically just having your ducks in a row and having everything all set up properly. And I've really noticed with event promoters and event marketers that quite often that's not the case. So they might not have their tracking pixels set up properly on their ticket page, or quite often it'll come later in the campaign where you've just missed all of your data because you sell the most tickets on the on sale. You've got all this absolute gold buying data that could be fed into the Meta algorithms, and you haven't got your pixel on your ticket page until 2 weeks later. And you've just absolutely missed so much gold that you can use to then go out and find more people who are similar to the people who are buying tickets to your event. So that's definitely the biggest mistake that I made. And now look, it's not always the promoter's fault. We've all had our challenges with certain ticketing platforms that you struggle to get pixels and whatever on. So it can be tricky, but it's really just something that you have to be on from the start to make sure that you get these pixels on, because it can really hurt your campaign if you don't have the tracking and everything set up properly.
And so when in terms of maximizing your ROI on Meta, does it again come down to that having your house in order, that digital hygiene?
Yeah, it does. It definitely comes down to that. And then it comes down to understanding the true power of platforms like that. And so a lot of people think of, say, Meta ads as a glorified billboard. Oh, let's just get our ad in front of the right people, and they see, they buy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as simple as that. And so what people don't understand is the power of these ad algorithms to go and find the right people who are not only interested in house music or techno or conferences or whatever it is that you're selling, whatever event that you're doing, but that are more likely to buy, and also the time and place and environment that they're more likely to buy in. And so sometimes people sort of miss that. Let's just say, for example, that for me, my general browsing and buying habits are, I'm a busy person. I quite often work late, and quite often on Sunday afternoons is when I'll kind of sit down and have my big list of life admin stuff that I've got to do. And I might be on the couch having a flick through socials, having a look at my list. And I'll be someone who generally buys tickets to events on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. Now, Meta knows that for every single person on this earth that's on the platform. They will work you over during the week. And if you're someone who watches videos on the train every morning on the way to work, then Meta will serve me videos on the train on the way to work. And then when I'm ready to buy, they'll serve me the conversion ad. Maybe it's on Instagram on the Sunday night. And so in the background, this is all happening 24/7 to every person on the platform. You're kind of getting worked over based on your behavior. So to understand exactly how this is all working enables you to craft your campaign in a way that facilitates Meta to do this, if that makes sense.
It does, but I mean, there's only so many ways you can craft a campaign as well. You can't cater for everyone's buying habits, for example. How do you work around that? How do you go for, I guess, the common denominator, or try cast that net as wide as possible while still being really targeted?
Yeah, it's important, and it's important to understand the actual essence of the platform. So, for example, if you were setting up a conversion campaign where you wanted people to buy tickets, what you're telling Meta is, hey, go out and find people and optimize towards people who are ticket buyers. Some people are just clickers, so they'll click through to ticket pages, they'll browse around, but they very rarely buy. Maybe their friends buy all the time, or maybe they just, for whatever reason, don't buy. But by asking Meta for conversions, you're telling it to go out and find people who will buy. But if you don't give it enough data, it's not going to be able to do that. So basically, when you set up an ad, a conversion ad, you need around 50 conversions in the first week to get enough data into the algorithm for Meta to build a little profile of what these people actually look like who are actually going to buy your tickets. And then after that, you generally need about 5 conversions per day to keep the algorithm fed. So if event promoters don't know this, or they don't understand it, they might just be running their conversion campaign. It might be ticking along, getting 1 or 2 conversions a day. It might say learning limited, but the promoter or ads manager doesn't really know exactly what that means. Things are ticking along okay, so they just leave it. Whereas if they jacked up their budget, say another $20, $30 a day, and that would increase the conversions up to 5, then it would get back into active and it would start firing on all cylinders. And then if your tickets are $100 and you're selling a ticket for 10, then if you're spending $10 to make a ticket, you're happy because you're making $90, gross profit on that ticket. So it might just be a case of you just need to increase your spend a little bit, and then that is going to get your campaign into gear and then start selling more tickets. And hey, if you're happy to spend $1 to make $2, we're all happy to do that, right? So it can just become a numbers game. But if you don't understand the numbers, then that's when it can become tricky and your campaign can sort of fall flat and be stagnant.
And you've got quite an interesting approach to the first 24 hours on Instagram and Facebook. Are you able to talk a little bit more about your approach to those two platforms in that first 24 hours?
So when you launch a new campaign, what you're basically trying to do is get as much engagement and as much social proof and as much reach as well, and sharing, virality as possible. So your first 24 hours are absolutely critical, because that's when you establish the social proof and the vibe and the hype on your event. Just giving a bit of context to this, with Meta, the best way to get good performance in your campaigns is have what they call placement optimized. So you have story versions, creative, you have feed version, you have Instagram feed, Facebook feed, etc. So you have all different creatives, and then it will just what they call a programmatic media buy, meaning it will optimize towards wherever anyone is in different placements, and it'll show the right creative to them. That's how you get a really dialed up, high performing campaign. But in the first 24 hours, your sole goal is to just get as much engagement, as much traction visibly on your posts as possible. So you don't really want to be worrying about serving too many impressions in stories in terms of your actual ad spend. You want all the dollars to be going towards feeds. And you also don't want your Instagram post to be sent over to Facebook feeds as an ad, and vice versa, because you're then duplicating the post and you're creating an extra post across each platform. So what you do is you just sponsor or just boost the Instagram post to Instagram feeds only, and you just sponsor the Facebook post to Facebook feeds only for the first 24 hours. That means every dollar that you're spending is people seeing it in the feed on that native platform. And that'll help you really drive that engagement. And, you've got to hustle as well, especially if you're a new brand. Get all your friends to comment, like, share, ask anyone that you know. Like, the amount of times that I spent in Messenger when we were launching Reminisce, just asking every single person on my whole friends list to like, share, comment, hey, I'll give you a discount ticket, I'll give you a free ticket. You got to do whatever you can to get that traction early, and then focus on the spend on that. And then after that, that's when you set up your placement optimized campaign and start getting your high performing ads to get those ticket sales or pre-sale signups. And I've noticed over the years that has been an absolute gold little strategy for me and my team.
Yeah, nice one. Corey, last couple of things. Obviously, throughout your career, a lot of things have gone right with your marketing. You've had great success. Of course, there's probably a flip side to that. There are things that haven't gone so well. Is there an example of something which hasn't quite gone to plan, but it proved to be a really big learning in how you approach marketing from that point on?
Yes, absolutely. As event promoters, we all have. It's funny. I can't remember who the promoter is. It's a famous Australian promoter. It might have been Koppel or Gadinsky or someone said that if you haven't, I think Richie, my business partner, actually wrote it in his True Faith book. If you haven't lost a house on an event, you're not a real promoter. Now, touch wood, I haven't done that yet, but we've all had our horror stories. So for us, it was probably COVID 2020. We had to cancel Reminisce 6 days out from the event. That was really tough, especially because with the way that the Arts Centre ticketing works, everything is held in trust. So we had paid for our whole entire event, yet we didn't have any of the ticket money. And so we were invested pretty heavily in the event. And then we postponed it for 6 months. No one knew what was going on with COVID. And then we had to postpone it another 6 months. And a lot of people had got refunds, but a lot of people kept their money. So I think we ended up with about 8,000 tickets. We still had people's money. Now, we didn't have the money. The Arts Centre Trust did, but their ticket money was held up. And when it came around to actually being able to run the event, we did it in a socially distanced manner. I'm not sure if you remember, but the Music Bowl actually built all of those decks, those big COVID sort of pods, and allowed us to do our Reminisce event. But what happened was we had to split it over 2 nights because the capacity was limited, and people had to buy their tickets in groups of 4 or 6 to be in their little pen that they were in.
Right.
So when they told us, they said, oh yeah, no, you're going to have to refund everyone's money and they're going to have to rebuy. And I was like, oh shit. this is going to suck because everyone has supported us. And in their mind, we were holding their money, but we weren't. We'd never had it. So then we thought, okay, how do we approach this? Do we make it a positive thing? Like, hey, we can finally do a Reminisce. This is awesome. This is the situation. Or do we acknowledge, hey, this sucks, but this is the way it is? And we went down the positive angle because we just didn't want a negative connotation to our tone of what we were doing. And so in hindsight, it probably came across a little bit tone deaf by the way that we did it, because people were kind of like, what the hell? Like, this is bullshit. Like, you held all our money for a year and now there's a chance that we might not even get tickets because it's a limited capacity. And now we've got to buy with 5 people or 4 other people. And I've only got me and my friend that come to Reminisce. And now we've got to buy in a group of 4 and all this stuff. And, you know, everyone was a bit angry and agitated during COVID, and fair enough. And this is something that I really struggle with as a promoter because I'm a very passionate, emotional person, but people just don't understand what's going on in the background. They see this big brand and they don't think there's actually people behind this brand. They've actually struggled through COVID. They're trying to do the best for us. And maybe we should just take a little bit of a deep breath and just understand what's happening in the background. So I guess for me, that was probably one of our toughest sort of journeys, but you know, we got through it and the events were awesome. Everyone had the best time ever. They said that was one of the best Reminisces ever, if not the best, because there was no toilet lines, there was no bar lines. It was easy to get around. We all had room to dance. So yeah, it ended up being great.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? I guess if something hasn't gone to plan at an event and you may have some disgruntled punters as a promoter or as a marketer, how do you placate those disgruntled people and ensure that they still maintain faith in the brand and want to come back next year?
Yeah, I've had a very recent experience with this, with our Tailgate event. I won't sort of go too deep into the why, but we had some real challenges on the day. It was 37 degrees and things like the misting fans didn't get dropped off. So we said there was going to be misting fans, and then amongst all the chaos, they didn't get dropped off by the hire company. And some people were out in the sun. It was really, really hot. Their beers were going warm so quicker than we could actually cool them. And so it ended up being a little bit of a cascading sort of issue. We had some issues with some of the food vendors. So whilst 80% of the people had a really awesome day, there were some people that didn't have a great experience. And I really felt that because we'd promised this thing to be the best day ever and everything like that. So about probably an hour before the event finished, I went into digital mode. I knew what was going to happen. I knew that as soon as people start leaving, they're going to be drunk, maybe a little bit pissed off that they didn't get food as quick or they were in the sun all day or whatever it is, and they're just going to go and start venting online. And so we need to arrest that before it gets out of control and becomes a herd mentality and everyone starts sinking the boots in. The absolute key to everything is just focus on the people. The people are the most important thing in your event. I'm making it sound worse than it was, but I was heartbroken at that time because I just couldn't stand the fact there was probably about 100 people that were pissed off. They were really pissed off. 1,400 people had a great day, but there was 100 who were just fuming. And so my absolute number one goal was just to listen to what those people had to say and just cop the brunt of of what they were saying. So we went online, we set up some parameters around putting in some keywords that would auto hide comments and all that sort of stuff. So you want to stop the herd mentality, you want to push everything into DM, and then you want to speak to the people as quick as you possibly can. So that was the overall strategy. And then I just got on the phone. Anyone that was typing in messages saying, hey, that was bullshit, why were we out in the sun all day? Da, da, da. I said, what's your number? I'll give you a call. And then I was just calling people, copying their fury, and whatever was going wrong, we would either say, oh, we'll give you a half price ticket for next year, or however bad their experience was. And then I spent the next week calling. There was there was about 40 complaints. There was about probably 60 people that in the post-event survey said, oh, look, this could have done this better, etc. I just rang them all. And it was the best thing we could have done because I didn't leave one of the conversations with the person still angry. They were happy to just hear from the guy who was running the event. And, you've got to take full responsibility. Yes, we could have made excuses, but at the end of the day, it all boiled down to us. So you say, hey, we stuffed up. We could have done this better. These are the reasons why it happened. We take full responsibility, and this is what we're going to do better next time.
Right.
If you do that, you honestly can't lose. You just got to make the people the most important part of your brand.
Absolutely. Corey, very last thing, very broad question, but over the next sort of 12 to 24 months, what do you foresee in the events landscape?
Yeah, obviously we're under no illusions that it's a tricky market at the moment. A lot of festivals have been struggling, cancelling, postponing, whatever it is. So there's definitely a big change in consumer behavior at the moment. And I'm in such a watch and see mindset. I don't think it's as doom and gloom as a lot of other people because, like I said, and I've said before, if people want to go to an event bad enough, they'll go. Taylor Swift, Dom Dollar, the Grand Prix does its biggest numbers ever, the Australian Open. So if the demand's there, people will go. But I think it is getting a lot harder for people to create that demand just because of the noise that everyone lives in these days. Everyone's just so stimulated by their phones. They're watching hundreds of TikToks and Instagram and whatever every day. So to actually get that cut through can be really hard. And the competition is fierce. And unfortunately, if you're not at the top of your game, you can sort of get left behind. So I think that knowledge is power, and understanding what makes people tick, how to generate hype, how to build a good brand is the most important thing, because technology can change forever, but the power of brand will never die. And brand is the most important thing in the world. And so focusing on your either event brand and or personal brand is the most important thing that you can possibly do. If you do that, then you're going to have people wanting to do business with you and come to your event.
Corey, that was so great. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Mate, it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. Always enjoyed talking about events. And as I said, love the platform. And thanks for the chat, buddy.